It's new camera day, and today we're talking about the Fuji X100V.
Taylor Jackson.
Shooting 67 weddings last year.
Taylor Jackson, welcome.
So Taylor, you are well known in this community. You're an amazing photographer.
Now you might be saying to yourself, Taylor, you have a show with Nikon coming out in just a couple of days. Why are you making a video about this Fuji camera? And it's kind of cool the way it worked out and how awesome Nikon's been with this, that they are a presenting sponsor of the show that we're about to release in a couple of days, but they're not an exclusive sponsor of me, which is awesome because that means that I'm actually able to bring you legitimate data across all camera systems. For instance, I'm filming this on a Canon R and I'm buying a Fuji camera and I shoot Nikon for my weddings, and potentially I might be shooting this Fuji body as my second body. I don't mind shooting Nikon and Fuji as one. I feel like with Lightroom you can get the color palettes close enough, and I know Lightroom's a bit of a bad word in the Fuji community, but I think it's coming around. Hopefully, if there are any really passionate Fuji individuals here, give me a yes or a no if Lightroom is a little bit better than it has been in the past for Fuji. I'm hoping that it is, because workflow wise I need to use it, and in the past Lightroom just hasn't handled Fuji files as well. So yeah, let's go try it out. Got word a couple of minutes ago that my camera has arrived. It was a few days late. I don't know if that was because of the crazy snowstorms and weird weather we've been having here in Canada, but finally, my Fuji X100V has arrived. Also, we're here at BJ Photo in Waterloo. If you are somebody that buys things from local camera shops, come here, BJ Photo, Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. You can also order online if you're not that close to here physically. This is exciting.
Disturbing the peace with some peace of mind. Sleeping in jeans, I'ma need a night. OD on the cheap advice. OC on the cheapest flight. Lately I've been on the move trying to get to something, but I told her I've been running just to see the sights, see the lights, and they're not my types who would chill with a brother if it's ice all white, but it's not. Am I living life in a box? Tell if it's a crisis or not. I hate coming off too normal, but I can use a wife and a dog and a job and a white fence off where the white kids walk. Well, if I've been lost, don't know where the days went. I spent a lot of nights in a blur, and I bet it's been a few too many trying to make it. And I haven't yet, yeah. We had to bet. I'm only here, yeah. You know. But if you don't like this music, then don't be listening to it, you know. I'm just a dude that you know, or something similar. If you don't keep it real, can you go somewhere but here? Cause you know we're only losing control, yeah. I say if you don't like...
Welcome to the studio. I'm going to talk to you a little bit now about what I like about the X100V. The funny thing, I was like, why is it called an X100V? Added it up. It is the 5th edition. Went in and did a little bit of research on why it's called the V, and the last one was the F, and then the one before that was the T, and the one before that was the S, and then the first one was just an X100. And it turns out that X100 is just the first one. X100S, S stands for second. X100T, the T stands for third, and X100F, F stands for fourth. And then they decided to go for the Roman numeral of 5, because I guess I can't write F again. F Mark II would have been a little confusing. I am really blown away with this camera, and looking through the viewfinder for the first time actually gave me excitement butterflies almost. So basically what happens, beautiful optical viewfinder. If you've heard any of my reviews in the past, I really do enjoy just seeing what I'm taking, and you have the marks around whatever your frame is, and you can see a little bit outside of that, which I really, really like. And then with one flip here, you hit that button, and you go into the electronic viewfinder, and you see a full proper electronic viewfinder. And then you have one more option that's actually an optical viewfinder with the electronic viewfinder, just a little preview in the corner, so you can make sure that you're not wildly overexposed if you're just kind of living life through optical viewfinder, which I do tend to enjoy as just kind of daily coverage. That is the first thing that really stood out to me. I know that that's on the X Pro 3, and that was the thing that when I looked through the viewfinder again, that stood out to me, that I could see my little EVF in the very bottom corner, but I had full access to an optical viewfinder. As well, being able to see a little bit out of your frame, I really like that, just as far as compositions go, that you can see exactly what you're getting and you're not just kind of blind to everything else. And I just appreciate that as a photographer in general. It's a very nice to have element that they did 100% correctly within this camera. Now I'm gonna go on the phone to Lee Zavitz, who's had this camera for a few weeks now. I'm talking about the Fuji X100V. And you've had
We got the
this.
silver one. They've kind of aimed this camera at kind of like a do-it-all camera compared to the past X100 series cameras. Like, obviously, it does 4K video, and it even actually does 10-bit video through the HDMI. The flip screen's really key. No other X100 camera has had a flip screen, so it's pretty sick that they added that into there. The Fuji purists might hate that, but I think it's super useful for like shooting from the hip. You're a little bit more discreet. It looks great. Image quality is amazing.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for joining me here in the studio. I bought it to keep it. I feel like this is the one of the cameras that, regardless of what system anyone uses, I just kind of most commonly see it in people's bags, which is really cool. It's like if you're a Nikon shooter or you're a Sony shooter or whatever, you see this commonly just kind of in people's bags, or at least the F version of it now. So it's cool that it's kind of that one-step solution that you don't have to, when you buy into a system and it's like, oh cool, like now I have to buy all these Fuji lenses, but with this, it's almost a positive to be so limited. Up here this is your shutter speed, so you roll this just like every other Fuji and it's your shutter speed. But if you pop it up just simply like that, it is now a very seamless ISO control. Pop it back down, it's back to your shutter speed. It's a very cool feature that I really, really enjoy, and it took me a second to figure out how to change the ISO, and then as soon as I figured it out, it's like, wow, it's so simple that it's genius. So I really, really enjoy that. I know that's kind of a throwback to some of the film cameras, and it's really cool to see them keeping that alive in their design. The 23mm lens, which is a 35mm lens equivalent in full frame, this is a crop sensor, APS-C sensor, and it actually uses the same chipset as, I guess, potentially the X-T4, for sure the same as the X-T3 and the X Pro 3. Going back to the lens, it was one of the complaints that I heard a lot on the Fuji X100F, that everybody loves the camera and they're happy to shoot with a lens that was just not quite what they, basically if you went into the shop and you were like, do I want X-T3 or do I want the 100F? You probably gravitate towards the X-T3 just because you could buy some better lenses for it. But in my testing so far, we're gonna test a lot more, and you can actually have the files, you have access to those if you want. You can pixel peep and do whatever you want with them, just don't put them online as your own images. But from my testing so far, this lens has really, there's a lot of good things going on with it, and it's kind of my perfect lens. I found that when I was using the Leica Q and the Leica Q2 is that the 28mm fixed lens on it is great, but I found myself specifically on the Q2 that I was pretty much at 35mm all the time. The way that camera works is the back button essentially goes from 28 to 35 to 50 to 75, and I really did enjoy that a lot, but I found that most of the time I was at 35, so to just have a 35 is just the lens that I want, and I feel like there's also value in holding or limiting yourself, and so you have to create within a box. I feel like I make better work whenever I'm just kind of fully limited. I've discovered that specifically with wedding and portraits, that if I just go with an 85 and I got to make that work and that's all I have, that I actually stay in the moment and the experience is a heck of a lot better. So I'm hoping the same goes for this and just being locked to a 35. Another cool thing is for video, you just, I guess for photography as well, is that you just have access to a 4-stop ND now. That's up from, I believe, a 3-stop ND that was in the last version of this camera. And to just have access to a 4-stop ND is helpful for video because it brings your shutter speed down, so you're not just maxing out if you're out in the bright sun, but also for photography. If you want to introduce a little bit of motion, you don't have to pop your f-stop up to like f18, f22, whatever the maximum might be, that you can just put on that 4-stop ND and get a little bit of motion into your photos. The LCD tilts, as Lee mentioned on the phone. One functionality that I'm kind of sad that doesn't exist is the X-T3, how it kind of pops up on the side so you can get that vertical kind of, it's a small thing. I wish that it had it, but I can't complain at the end of the day because there's so much good going on in this camera. Moving into video, it really does everything that I would want from it, especially a form factor of this size. It does 4K, it does 1080 at 120 frames a second, which is not something that I would expect this camera to have. It does it really fantastically. I love the way Fuji does video, specifically just shooting in the color profiles, the Fuji film simulations that come in here. One, for photography is amazing, but it is kind of the underrated thing for shooting video with the color palette that comes off of one of these cameras, and I know that there's a lot of people that have discovered this. You can definitely see when somebody's using a Fuji color palette, and the thing that I personally like is, I've spoken to this a lot in the past, that I really do shoot everything as correct as I can in camera. I don't shoot flat profiles. I don't want to do color and post. If I'm out shooting content like this, or if even wedding day content, if I'm in good light and I know I'm not gonna have to do a lot, I might as well just shoot it in the profile that I want it to look on a computer. Speeds my editing and post-production up a lot, and the colors and the simulations that come out out of this are really fantastic. And from a social media standpoint as well, that we're professional photographers, we have to play the game of creating content when we're out there traveling, even if it's for fun. And to have this camera, one, the Bluetooth connectivity with it is really top of the class. Like, the thing that we like is that Lindsay will use this camera as well, and when we're out and we're taking photos, that they're just transferring to your phone just casually. And you can just instantly upload those to wherever you want, and the colors already look amazing on it, so you don't have to go through much post-production or Lightroom Mobile or anything like that, that it's pretty much, as you're shooting it, it's just ready to go and it's already on your phone. The autofocus is great. It's definitely an upgrade from previous versions. It uses contrast AF as well as phase detect pixel. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And in my testing so far, I'm just super happy with it. And the autofocus works very well on video as well. You have eye autofocus and face detect if you want to use that. The one potential, I guess, downside, maybe the only downside, is potentially also a positive, I guess, is that this is really a bonus camera. That if you're a professional photographer, this isn't going to be the only camera that's in your bag. It is a great addition to your bag. It is a great backup camera. It really kind of captures everything that you would need to, specifically wedding portrait shooting, and it's a backup camera that fits into the smallest pocket probably in your camera bag. But it definitely is a bit of an expensive camera to have that probably won't do everything that you want your professional body to be doing. That said, if you do want more than the 35mm lens, you can get teleconverters, you can do modifications to it to make it something that maybe it isn't straight out of the box, but it is a bonus camera. The positive side of that is that if you're a Nikon or Canon or Sony shooter, that it makes sense to kind of buy this camera if you're interested in it, because it is a one-stop solution. You get this camera, you don't need to buy lenses, you don't need to invest into the Fuji ecosystem. You can just get this camera and be very happy with it as a standalone. So negative is that it's a bonus camera, but the positive is it's a bonus camera for anyone on any system that just really enjoys photography. I guess another downside is that it does not have in-body stabilization for video, I guess for photo as well, but more importantly for video, a bit of a downside. But for Fuji to have included all of the features that everyone could have possibly ever wanted in this camera body, this small camera body, would have either made the cost go up significantly, or it just would have made it into a Fuji X-T4. I am excited about the X-T4, the in-body stabilization in it, as well as the Mark II of the kit lens. If you heard me ever speak about the X-T3, it's an amazing travel camera. Just in the kit configuration, it can really do pretty much anything you could ever need from it. So in closing, this is a really, really fantastic camera, and unfortunately I can't make the decision whether it is worth it to wait for the X-T4 or to get this right now. If I could offer any advice on that matter, it would be, if you just want this camera, if you think you'll be happy with 35mm lens, to get this camera right now. If you want to take advantage of the full Fuji ecosystem of lenses, to wait for the X-T4, because they're both going to be fantastic cameras. Photography-wise, I am super happy I picked this up. It will be in our bag for years to come. It will be in Lindsay's bag as well. We're sharing it. This is shared custody of this Fuji camera. And you'll probably see a couple of videos from it over the next couple of weeks. We're heading way up north, literally, for a way up north style workshop. They put on yearly, I guess twice a year. They do a convention, and then they also do workshops. So we're going to an ice hotel to take some photos up in the ice hotel. And Lindsay and I are modeling. So our modeling debut will be in an ice hotel in Sweden, which we're, I guess, excited and probably nervous about, because it's a bit of a strange thing to be on the other side of the camera. But probably see some videos from this camera, as well as probably my Nikon, I'm gonna say D780 I'm gonna bring, just because I love the 85mm 1.4G. It's like my favorite lens ever for weddings and portraits. So yeah, see you next time. And then 9 days from now, approximately, the Nikon show is gonna come out on March 9th. It's gonna be the first episode. So get excited for that. And until then, I will see you every single day here on YouTube, actually, because I have a bunch of videos all coming out before then. Thanks to Lee for dropping by as well. If you haven't seen Lee's review of this camera, I think he's one of the only YouTubers that get the Fuji system to actually put stuff on YouTube. And he was fortunate enough to use it for a week and get some good use out of it in some slightly warmer conditions than it is today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow. And then the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day.